Travel back in time 150 million years, and the scene would have been much the same. The crocodiles, giants among today's reptiles, have existed almost unchanged since the Earth was dominated by the dinosaurs. But now it seems that the reign of the crocodilian may come to an end, as suddenly, although not as mysteriously, as that of their extinct cousins. Man's greed for their skins has pushed almost every species of crocodile to the very edge of extinction. But it's not too late. With a concerted effort and a change in our attitude, we can save them. Surely the time has now come to pity the poor crocodile. Crocodilians can be found in almost every waterside habitat throughout the tropical world. The 21 species range in size from the 3-foot dwarves to the 20-foot giants. The true crocodiles have an enlarged 4th tooth in the lower jaw, which distinguishes them from the rest of the group, the alligators, Caiman and Gharial. Man's conflict with the crocodilian is as old as man himself. We've always hunted them for their flesh or their hides, or simply because of their menacing presence. But it's only over the last 50 years that man has had such a dramatic effect on their numbers. If we still had to use these techniques to catch them, the future of the crocodiles would not be threatened. But modern hunting methods using powerboats, high-velocity rifles and even dynamite have decimated their populations worldwide. Crocodiles are cold-blooded and spend much of the day basking in the sun. But they have evolved primarily for life in the water. The jaws of this Indian marsh crocodile provide it with a formidable grip. The nostrils and ear slits have horny coverings, sealing them off while underwater. The limbs, although relatively small, can provide surprisingly rapid bursts of movement on land. The flattened, muscular tail propels the creature swiftly through the water. A tough, armoured skin is an adaptation that's played an important part in the crocodile's survival, but may soon prove to be its downfall. Only the belly scales are used in the leather trade. Crocodiles, and here it's a young Nile, also have a transparent nictitating membrane over each eye, allowing them to hunt underwater for their favourite prey, fish. Aquatic prey is usually eaten out of the water, while large air-breathing animals are normally drowned. A herd of thirsty wildebeest have come down to this African waterhole to drink. It's already occupied by a number of large, ever-watchful Nile crocodiles. The wildebeest are naturally wary, but with only its nostrils and the top of its head visible above the water, the crocodile can breathe, smell, see and hear, and can approach to within a few feet of the herd. The majority of the crocodile's terrestrial prey is taken while at the water's edge. A fully grown crocodile can completely submerge in less than 2 feet of water. Even when visible, it's easily mistaken for a floating log. They will eat almost any animal, but only 2 species, the Nile and saltwater crocodiles, can be regarded as man-eaters. Women washing clothes and children playing at the waterside are at greatest risk, but fortunately such incidents are uncommon. A crocodile will either seize an animal in its jaws or, using its enormously powerful tail, knock its prey off balance. A splash, a roll, and a young wildebeest provides the crocodiles with their next meal. Although for a long time it was thought that the crocodile stored its prey in underwater hiding places, this now seems unlikely. But there is some truth in the belief that they swallow stones to assist in breaking up food in the stomach. Over 90 were found inside one individual. Crocodiles also play a major role as scavengers. This hippo probably died of old age, and a young Nile crocodile is quick to take advantage. The carcass attracts large numbers. Crocodiles have an acute sense of smell. Their position as scavengers is as important as that of the hyenas and vultures. Not only do they dispose of any carcass in the water, but they will search them out on land, often at great distances from the water's edge. The creatures around this hippo are almost all the same size. Crocodiles tend to live in groups of similar-sized individuals, as they also have cannibalistic tendencies. Crocodiles cannot chew. They simply break, crunch and gulp. The usual technique is to hold on to the prey with the jaws while the crocodile spins its body in the water, tearing off chunks of flesh. Even an animal the size of a hippo is disposed of very quickly. The feast continues all through the day and well into the evening. Crocodiles spend most of the night in the water. Once the sun has set, the air temperature drops quickly, but the heat-retaining property of the water allows the crocodiles to remain active well after dark. It's late November in southern Africa, and this female Nile crocodile has come ashore to select a nesting site. Mating took place some 5 months earlier, and her mate will still be in the general vicinity. Using her hind legs, she digs a hole 1.5 feet deep. Suitable nesting sites are hard to find, and the females become very aggressive in the defense of an area. The position of the site must be open enough to receive the full benefit of the sun's warmth. The nest must be close to the water, but not run the risk of getting waterlogged, as a crocodile embryo can drown within the egg. Once a nest site is selected, it will be used by the same female year after year. The eggs are large, some 4 inches long, and are enclosed in a hard, chalky shell. The number of eggs laid depends on the size of the female. Clutch sizes from 18 to 80 have been recorded. Once the last egg is laid, the sand is carefully replaced. The eggs haven't simply been dropped haphazardly into the nest, but laid in layers separated by sand. Once the hole is full, she paddles down the nest to ensure the eggs are tightly packed. She takes great care to smooth down the area, removing all traces of her work. Unlike the majority of living reptiles, the crocodile doesn't just leave its eggs to fate and the incubating warmth of the sun. She remains nearby for the next 3 months and even abstains from feeding. Parental protection is very necessary, as crocodile eggs are eaten with relish by a great many animals. The greatest and most successful robber of crocodile nests is the Nile monitor. This 4.5-foot lizard is a common sight along the banks of Africa's rivers and lakes. A monitor may only eat half a dozen or so of the eggs, but once a nest has been exposed, marabou storks, hyenas and vultures soon finish off the rest. Regardless of the care taken by the female crocodiles in burying and guarding their eggs, a large percentage of the clutches are found and destroyed. For 12 weeks, the crocodiles will have to watch their nests round the clock if their young are to survive. It's now early March in southern Africa, and strange croaking sounds fill the air around the Nile crocodile nesting site. Close to hatching time, the baby crocodiles begin to call from within the eggs. Crocodilians are among the very few reptiles which possess a voice. The sound they make is loud enough to penetrate the overlaying sand and can be heard over 40 feet from the nest. On hearing the noise, the females approach from their hiding places and begin to excavate the nests. This behavior is essential as during incubation the overlaying sand often bakes hard in the sun and would prevent the young from reaching the surface alone. The crocodiles arrive at the site from all directions. Some have been watching from the water, others from the undergrowth nearby, waiting to charge at any potential egg thieves. Some actually lie over the nest for long periods to keep an even closer watch. A female often crawls past or even over several nests before reaching her own. What is about to happen was only discovered very recently and has rarely been captured on film. The female crocodile tilts her head, picks up a hatchling and throws it into her mouth. Many of the young actually crawl towards her jaws, and as they do so, each one is picked up. But the female hasn't waited patiently for the past 3 months just for a tasty snack. The young are not being eaten, but stored in a pouch on the floor of their mother's mouth. Once the mouth contains 9 or 10 hatchlings, she crawls down to the water and releases them. The female has to make several journeys to empty her nest. Sometimes the male crocodiles also lend a hand in transporting the hatchlings. Even those baby crocodiles which wander from the nest will later be sought out and taken to the water. It's very necessary for hatchlings to be carried by their parents. The area is completely exposed and a 10-inch crocodile is a tasty morsel. Storks, herons, snakes and large lizards are all known to prey on the hatchlings. How can a crocodile crush the bones of a wildebeest with its jaws one moment and pick up something so delicately the next? The secret lies in the pressure receptors along the crocodile's jaws, allowing it to judge exactly how much force they're exerting. An adult crocodile is even able to pick up any eggs not already hatched and roll them in its mouth, cracking the shell to release the youngster inside. An amazing achievement when you consider the ratio of the adult's weight to that of the egg is 4,000 to 1. Before this remarkable behavior was first observed, it was thought that the female crocodile simply escorted her young down to the water. Another theory suggested that the young were transported either on the female's back or even hanging to the enlarged scales of her tail. Some of the young certainly do crawl over the back of their mother and could also reach the water this way. Even when all the young crocodiles are safely launched, their parents do not abandon them but remain with their offspring for 6 to 8 weeks, protecting them further from danger before eventually dispersing. The young grow rapidly on a diet of fish, insects and frogs. Only when they're about 5 years old and perhaps 6 feet long will they be able to tackle their first mammalian prey. Once they're this size, they have few natural enemies. But it's man who poses the biggest threat to the crocodilians. Every year, hundreds of thousands are turned into shoes, handbags, or hideous tourist curios. The South American caiman suffers especially badly like this. Large numbers are turned into souvenirs despite widespread laws forbidding their export. The majority of caimans used in this way are only a few months old. Of the 21 species of crocodilia alive today, 15 are now considered to be endangered, and 2, including the Chinese alligator, are now thought to be extinct in the wild. One of those species most threatened is the gharial. The rivers of northern India and Nepal are the home of this unique animal. The Indian gharial is the most aquatic of the crocodiles and lives almost exclusively on fish. To capture them in its elongated jaws and needle-sharp teeth, it sweeps its head from side to side. The precise function of the growth on the end of the snout of the older males remains a mystery. Perhaps it amplifies his call. Gharials are also among the largest of living reptiles, reaching 20 feet or more in length. The gharial comes very close in appearance to the earliest members of the crocodile family. Today, sadly, fewer than 100 adults remain. Most have disappeared since the early 1950s, victims of dam building, hide hunting and net fishing. But here in the Chittawan National Park, moves are afoot to save this remarkable creature from extinction. These scientists and their helpers are looking for one of the few areas still used by the gharial for nesting. The nest site is less than 25 feet from the river, but this is probably the furthest a gharial will ever venture from water. Once a nest has been located, the overlaying sand is carefully removed. This nest contains over 30 eggs. The female must have been quite large, as gharials only lay up to 40 eggs. They are carefully removed and packed into cases. It's important that reptile eggs aren't rolled during incubation, as this would damage the delicate membranes inside. The crates of eggs are taken by river to a nearby similar site, protected by a predator-proof cage. A hole identical to the one dug by the gharial is excavated by hand. The depth at which the eggs are buried is very important. Too deep and the temperature will be too low for proper development. Too near to the sand surface and the eggs will boil. The eggs are arranged in the same layers. The sand is replaced and the area smoothed over. The eggs will now continue their development in conditions as near natural as possible. For safety's sake, as hatching time approaches, the nests are excavated. The success of the project so far is shown by the cracking of the hard outer shell, an indication that the embryos have successfully developed and the eggs will shortly hatch. The clutches are now taken to the park headquarters at Kazara, Dunbar. A few days later, and the young can be heard calling from within the crates. The cracked, hard outer shell has fallen off, leaving the young to break free from the leathery membranes inside. Their elongated snouts are already protruding. With a little help, the hatchlings soon wriggle free. A baby gharial is very large, almost 15 inches. Much of this length is, of course, toothy jaws. The youngsters are taken to pens where they will be fed and maintained until large enough to fend for themselves in the wild. They'll be about 3 feet long. There are now over 1,500 young gharials in rearing stations in India and Nepal, 15 times the world population of adults a few years ago. The first releases into the wild have already taken place. 25 were released into India's river Mahanadi, and many more have since followed. In Chittawan, it's the local people, the Bote, once hunters of the gharial and raiders of their nests, who are being employed to maintain the rearing centres and feed the young gharials. Large numbers of fish are caught daily to feed the ever-growing youngsters. Rate of growth is very variable, even within the same brood. It usually takes about 18 months for growth to 3 feet long. It's essential for the young to be fed during this period on living rather than chopped fish. They must have developed their fish-catching skills by the time they're released into the river. The Gharial project looks like being a great success, and the future for one of the world's most interesting creatures appears safe. Large areas of prime Gharial habitat, fast-flowing, deep-pooled rivers, have now been set aside in India and Nepal. Already, projects are underway in the same part of the world to conserve the Indian marsh crocodile and the estuarine crocodile, the only crocodilian regularly found at sea. Across the other side of the world, in Florida, the Mississippi alligator almost disappeared because of overhunting. Since its protection in the late 1960s, its numbers have increased dramatically. So much so, in fact, that controlled hide hunting is now permitted in some states. The future for many other species of crocodilian still looks bleak. Extinction is nothing new, but it used to be a very gradual process extending over thousands, perhaps many thousands of years. Yet since man appeared, it has become a very rapid and all too frequent occurrence. Man has already exterminated some of the Earth's most interesting animals. Now it may well be the turn of the crocodiles, living reminders of the age of the great dinosaurs.